We were so excited to get this decision today, and as you can see, it's rather hefty. So there will be a lot for us to learn as we go along. But this was a definitive decision. There is no question that abortion is legal and protected in South Carolina, and we look forward to continuing that service, that abortion care to our patients.
That is the Director of Public Affairs for South Carolina reacting to the decision of the state Supreme Court knocking down the 6-week ban on abortion. It was a 3-2 decision, so pretty close. These things tend to be. Never forget how important the judiciary is. But it took about 2 years for this decision to finally come, a long battle. That was Republican Governor Henry McMaster, who 2 years ago signed the 6-week abortion restriction into law. It's banning abortions after cardiac activity is detected. That was one of the tricks that the anti-abortion movement played, trying to pretend that for some reason that threshold had biological or ethical significance for some reason. So, we can go from 20 to 6 specifically because of that point. In any event, there were actually exceptions in this ban, which makes it notable in more recent days. It provided exceptions for pregnancies by rape or incest, pregnancies that endanger the patient's life. Some of the more recent bans don't even include those things. So it's particularly significant that this was knocked down considering that it had those exceptions. That seems like almost a more significant thing for the state Supreme Court to do. And I wanna give you just a little bit of the reasoning. So Kay Hearn is one of the justices of that Supreme Court, said that the state unquestionably has the authority to limit the right of privacy that protects from state interference with the decision to get an abortion. But she added that any limitation must afford sufficient time to determine one is pregnant and take reasonable steps if she chooses to terminate that pregnancy. 6 weeks is quite simply not a reasonable period of time for these two things to occur. And I'm sure that this will be appealed. We'll see what ends up happening with that. But because this has been struck down, South Carolina now reverts their previous abortion law, which restricts the process after 20 weeks. Brett, what do you think?
I mean, it's very significant that this happened in South Carolina, a deep red state that since 1964 has voted for Republicans, except for Jimmy Carter versus Gerald Ford. That was the only time that nationally in the presidential election they opted for a Democrat. And those are relevant. And the only thing really relevant is anything after Roe versus Wade in this context. But I mean, this is one time when a Republican-packed court is not out of step with the people at large.
Yeah.
And time again, whether it's in South Carolina's court or if it's in Kansas's public referendum, the people are saying, actually, we are for a woman's right to choose, period. We are pro-choice. If you want to do what you want with your body, we're fine with that. And we'll see what happens. Does this then go back to the Supreme Court of the United States of America? And
if it's appealed.
If it's appealed, it will then, further enshrine how out of step with America and sanity the Supreme Court is as a result of the Heritage Foundation just jumping in and kind of putting together a great ground game to get psychopathic Supreme Court justices legitimized.
Yeah. One thing that is definitely worth looking into if this does get appealed is that South Carolina's state constitution does have an explicit right to privacy. That right to privacy, which basically was founded on Roe v. Wade, was significantly damaged, if not destroyed, earlier this year. So we will see if the national Supreme Court is willing to override what is clearly a part of the state constitution. That'll certainly be interesting. And really fast, here's an updated map from the New York Times of where full or 6-week bans on abortion have happened. So you can see a significant amount of the country has gone to full-on bans just since last year. But don't worry, they're recalibrating on abortion. Don't think of them as radicals. Don't get mad at the Republicans. They've only banned it in a whole bunch of states, as we knew they would.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.